Vendo com a grande lenda do Muay Thai. Tem que mandar isso aí pra casa rapateira. Hoje é forte.
Gauchos! Upcut, hash crot, hash jab, hash away, jab, hash away.
Charles Olivera has just started his intense training camp ahead of his upcoming clash against Ilia Topuria. Charles trains hard for Ilia with strong focus and determination. Every day he works to improve his strength, skills, and mindset, knowing the challenge is not easy. He practices carefully, learns new things, and stays disciplined. His goal is not just to be strong, but also to be smart and ready. For Charles, training for Ilia is very important. It shows how much he cares and how serious he is about doing his best. Charles is getting ready for Ilia with a lot of effort and focus. He trains every day, trying to become stronger and better. He practices his moves, works on his fitness, and keeps a positive mindset. Charles knows that Ilia will be a big challenge, so he takes his training seriously. He wants to be fully prepared. For him, this training is not just about winning, it's about giving his best and showing how much he cares. However, Renato Moicano said that the matchup between Ilia Topuria and Charles Olivera is tougher than many people expect. He mentioned that some think Topuria will easily dominate Charles, but that's not true. Charles is very tough. He acknowledged that Topuria, coming from 145 pounds, will also make it a hard fight for both fighters. Moicano didn't have a strong opinion at first, leaning more toward Topuria, but after doing a podcast with Charles on his Brazilian channel, he found it hard not to like him. In the end, he's choosing Charles, partly because he's Brazilian.
You're fighting on the Charles Olivera versus Ilia Topuria card. Charles is a big underdog. How do you see that fight going?
Man, that's a tougher matchup that a lot of people think. They think Topuria gonna run through Charles. You never count Charles Olivera out. I think he's very tough. But Topuria is good, you know? He's 145. It's going to be a tough fight for both fighters. I don't have an opinion on that. I was leaning more to Topuria, but today I just had a podcast with Charles on my Brazilian channel. It's just very hard to not like the guy. That makes harder, you know, to pick against him. So I'm going with Charles just because he's Brazilian.
On the other hand, Khamzat Chimaev spoke highly of Ilia Topuria's talent and achievements in the UFC. He recalled their early training days together at All Stars Gym back before Topuria had gained mainstream attention. Even then, Chimaev noted, Ilia was competing at a high level in Brave FC, just like himself. He admired Topuria's strong work ethic and ambition, saying it was obvious from the beginning that Ilia was destined for success. Now, Chimaev added, Topuria has come close to reaching everything a fighter could hope for in the sport.
Очень известный сейчас боец. Ты с ним вроде как давно знаком. Он тренировался в Альстаре вместе, вот до еще его всей известности. Когда вот тренировки ты его видел, ты видел этот потенциал будущий?
Ну, конечно, ну просто тогда, в то время, этот был он хорошим топовым бойцом в Брейве, и как и я, мы оба там выступали. Видно было, потому что он такой пахарь и хочет добиться чего-то в своей жизни. И парень добился всех высот, которые можно было в этом спорте добиться.
Charles Olivera is currently focused on sharpening his striking skills, bringing the same intensity and dedication that define his overall approach to training. Every day, he drills combinations, works on timing and movement, and fine-tunes his technique with his coaches. While he's already known for his elite jiu-jitsu, Charles is now pushing hard to become just as dangerous on his feet. He's constantly looking to improve his speed, power, and precision, showing a clear determination to become a more complete and unpredictable fighter. This phase of his training reflects his hunger to evolve and stay at the top of the game. Charles Olivera spends long hours in the gym, focusing deeply on improving his striking. Surrounded by coaches and training partners, he works tirelessly on his technique, practicing combinations and footwork with precision. The gym environment pushes him to stay sharp and motivated, as he constantly challenges himself to get faster and more accurate. Even with his strong ground game, Charles knows that developing his stand-up skills is key to staying competitive. His time in the gym reflects his commitment to evolving as a fighter and preparing for any challenge ahead. However, Paddy Pimblett expressed his belief that Ilia Topuria has a strong chance to beat Charles Olivera at UFC 317. He described Olivera as a tough fighter, but suggested that his chin might not be as reliable, especially considering he has fought nearly 40 times and taken a lot of damage. While Pimblett respected Olivera's dangerous ground skills, he also noted that Charles sometimes takes unnecessary risks in his fights. Pimblett highlighted the big jump from 145 to 155 pounds. A factor many casual fans overlook. Since Olivera has a similar build to Pimblett himself, he thinks the natural size difference could become very clear in a fight focused on striking.
Ilia beats Charles then?
I think he might, to be honest. Charles is a bit chinny, isn't he? You know what I mean? He's had about 40 fights or something. He always gets punched. He always gets cracked.
Yeah.
So,
he's reckless, but he's super exciting.
Yeah, he is.
And he's dangerous.
Exciting. If he gets him down, I can see him winning, because that 10 pounds difference is a big difference.
Yeah.
145 to 155, it's a big difference. People don't understand that because they don't watch the sport or they're not involved in the sport. But that 10 pounds makes a big difference. And especially, like, Charles is like my height. Ilia's like down here when I stand up, you know what I mean? So it's gonna make a big difference. Like,
Paddy Pimblett also mentioned that Ilia Topuria might underestimate just how big Charles Olivera looks in person. He explained that fighters coming from smaller weight classes often don't realize how physically strong and imposing their bigger opponents are until they face them up close. Pimblett gave examples like Bobby Green and Michael Chandler, who many expected to be more intimidating physically than they actually were. This, he suggested, could be a factor for Topuria when stepping into the octagon with Olivera.
Ilia might get a bit of a fright at how big Charles is when he stands opposite him. Fighters do that with me, who fight at lightweight. You know what I mean? I'll never forget Bobby Green looking over at me and being like, "What? He's big, him." Same with Chandler. Like people thought Chandler was going to be bigger than me, and he just weren't.
However, Charles Olivera was doing an open workout, showing fans just how hard he trains his striking. In front of a crowd, he moved with speed and precision, throwing sharp punches and powerful kicks. The open session highlighted his dedication to improving every aspect of his stand-up game. Even with his reputation as a great grappler, Charles made it clear that his striking is getting stronger and more dangerous. The workout gave a glimpse of his focus and determination to keep evolving as a fighter.
Superman punch. Jump. Left kick. One more time. Push kick. Push kick.
During his open workout, Charles Olivera showed just how sharp and focused he is in training. Moving with speed and confidence, he fired off crisp combinations and fluid footwork, blending his striking with the kind of precision that only comes from years of experience. Fans watched as he mixed in powerful knees and elbows, a reminder of his aggressive and creative style. Even in an open setting, Charles maintained intensity, showing that he's not just preparing, he's evolving. The session reflected his serious mindset and his readiness to face anyone standing across from him in the octagon.
Up, back, like go. Yep, away. Bang, up, bang, one. Yep, away. One more. Yep, elbow, back, up, back.
Moreover, Islam Makhachev's coach, Javier Mendez, said he would bet on Ilia Topuria to defeat Charles Olivera, even though he personally hopes Olivera wins. Mendez pointed out that Olivera tends to keep his posture upright, which could make him vulnerable to Topuria's boxing style, known for a lower stance and heavy pressure. He also highlighted Topuria's ability to land precise strikes to the chin, as shown in his fight against Josh Emmett. Mendez believes that if they face each other, Topuria would probably have more opportunities to land effective shots than Olivera.
Ilia, power puncher, boxer, low stance versus Charles Olivera. If someone gave you 100 grand to bet on that fight, who would you bet?
Ilia. But if you're asking me who I would want to win, I'll put Charles. I'll put my money on Charles.
Yeah.
It's basically because Charles is going to stand in there upright, like you're saying, and Ilia's got a really good way of connecting with that chin. Really, really nice. Just like what he did with Volk. Ilia's got more opportunities than Charles does.
Javier Mendez further explained that he favors Ilia Topuria to win because of Topuria's precise boxing up close and his knack for landing strong, clean punches. He mentioned that Olivera's tall, upright stance makes him vulnerable, and that it would be challenging for Olivera to take Topuria down without using well-timed knees or front kicks. While Olivera has the reach advantage and can deliver dangerous kicks, Mendez believes Topuria has more tools and better chances to come out on top in the fight.
It's basically because Charles is going to stand in there upright, like you're saying, and when he gets inside, he's going to use that boxing, and Charles' head's going to be up, and Ilia's got a really good way of connecting with that chin on the inside. Really, really nice, just like what he did with Volk. You know, and I think if Charles doesn't get him up the middle with knees or front kicks up the middle, he's going to have a hard time with his boxing against him, and he's going to have a hell of a time trying to take him down. So it's going to be one of those where Ilia's got more opportunities than Charles does. But Charles can surprise us with his length, you know, and up the middle would be really, really well suited for him. And the kicks too, you know, body, head type thing, you know, low, high. You know, he could do really well with that.
Furthermore, Robert Whittaker remarked that the 155-pound division is currently the most entertaining in the UFC, especially now with Ilia Topuria joining the ranks. He mentioned Topuria's claim that the organization guaranteed him a title shot if he vacated the featherweight crown. Whittaker said that when champions switch divisions, they deserve to challenge top contenders immediately, though he also acknowledged that this can be frustrating for fighters who work their way through a difficult lineup. He concluded that the UFC will probably choose whichever scenario creates the biggest financial gain.
I think the lightweight division is the most exciting division right now. It's just death row in the lightweight division at the moment. Like the top 5, dude, that guard up there right now, it's just killers, man.
But especially with Ilia Topuria entering the mix, right? The whole big story over the past week was he obviously vacated the title at featherweight, but apparently he said the UFC told him, we promise you a title opportunity if you vacate. That's what he told Spanish media. Or I think he said as a backup, he would fight Charles Olivera. And now they've gone back and forth. What do you reckon, Rob?
I don't know what was promised or anything, but I feel like if you're in a lower division and you vacate the title, you should go straight to the top of the pecking order. I'd like to see him go straight into a title shot. Okay. Understandably, it can be tricky that way because there are a lot of guys, like styles make fights. So if the champion of a lighter division has a better style to beat the guy in the high division, where's the fairness of that? Because that guy may not get through 10 guys to get to a title shot. He may not get through the contenders. I just feel like there should be a certain amount of weight for being the champion of the division already. I can also see the side of the argument for the guys in the division that have been like, brother, like I've had to slog, especially in the lightweight division, like I've had to slog my way to the top of this division, and it is death row there. I think UFC's going to do what makes them the most money.
Michael Bisping broke down a potential fight between Ilia Topuria and Charles Olivera, describing Charles as an aggressive fighter who moves forward with powerful punches, knees, and elbows, always hunting for submission opportunities. However, Bisping pointed out that Topuria would be making his debut in the lightweight division. He praised Ilia's crisp boxing, strong punching power, relentless pressure, and impressive Greco-Roman wrestling skills. Bisping said he wouldn't be surprised if Topuria managed to come out victorious in that matchup.
Ilia versus Charles Du Bronx Oliveira. We know Charles is a dangerous, aggressive son of a bitch. He's going to walk forward, punch his knees, elbows, he'll lock on a submission. Ilia, this is his first fight at lightweight, and with the punching power of Ilia Topuria, the boxing that he has, the footwork that he has, and the Greco-Roman wrestling, it wouldn't surprise me if Ilia pulls it off.
Moreover, MMA guru and Demetrius Johnson both shared their thoughts on the potential fight between Ilia Topuria and Charles Olivera. MMA guru called it a huge pay-per-view draw, even though no titles would be on the line, and said it's an exciting matchup. However, he also admitted there's some uncertainty about how Topuria will handle the jump to 155 pounds. Demetrius Johnson added that Topuria is actually a big guy, usually walking around at about 191 pounds. Johnson found it surprising that Topuria fought at featherweight for so long and said moving up to lightweight makes a lot of sense. He also mentioned that it's always interesting to watch fighters step into higher weight classes.
If Ilia Topuria fights Charles Oliveira on the pay-per-view, that's a big deal.
Oh, it's gonna be a banger fight.
They don't need to wait for an interim belt. They don't need to wait for an undisputed, so yeah. I don't know how he's going to do it lightweight, though. Maybe you can speak on that. He's a smaller guy coming up.
It's a smaller coming up. It'll be interesting because he is bigger from when I heard him on the Joe Rogan podcast. Like 191, I think he was walking around. It's massive. So for him to cut to 145 seems almost like, how did he do that? But now that he's going up to 155, I always like when athletes go up.
However, Joe Rogan praised Charles Oliveira as a dangerous and elite fighter capable of beating anyone in the octagon. He reflected on Charles's earlier struggles, pointing out how he used to struggle under pressure and lose focus in tough moments. However, Rogan believes everything shifted once Charles became a father. Since then, Olivera has shown a new level of confidence and fearlessness in his fights. Rogan also mentioned that while some fans still bring up his past losses to fighters like Cub Swanson and Paul Felder, those setbacks don't define him anymore. Instead, Rogan urges people to pay attention to the fighter Olivera has become focused, determined, and one of the best in the game today.
If you go and watch Charles Oliveira, some of his earlier fights, it looks like he kind of like folded.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
then something happened after the birth of his daughter where Charles Oliveira becomes this assassin.
Yeah.
And he's just and he just has no quit in him. He's just an animal.
Yeah.
And it's just like everybody just forgot about that old shit. Like, no, he's the man.
Yeah.
And they forgot about the Cub Swanson fight. They forgot about all these other fights. They forgot about the Paul Felder fight. They forgot about those fights. Like, all that fight. What is he capable of
now,
when he's on?
If he wants to move up 100%, I support it. Now, does he defeat someone like Islam Makhachev? Because people aren't paying attention of what Ilia Topuria is doing. He wants to be on that top spot, pound for pound. I think he's on top 3 right now, 100%. He knows this is his path to get there. Why not take off the pound for pound? So I support it. Let him try. And I'm having a joy watching Islam defend this title, of course.
So what are your thoughts on this? What do you think about Ilia versus Charles? We would love to hear your thoughts, so share your thoughts in the comment section and make sure to subscribe and like if you enjoyed the video.